Recording in progress.
Got it.
Got it. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, and welcome to the Blurring the Lines podcast. This is episode number 167. I'm your host, Adam Bell, and joining me as always is my co-host, Peter Nikolaidis. How you doing, Peter?
Doing good, sir. Here, sir.
Here, sir.
Wow, we've done this 167 times.
167 times. You'd think we would be better at it by now.
You'd think.
We're kind of hard. We're hard-headed, you know.
I mean, usually by the time I've done something 167 times, I consider myself fairly proficient at that.
Yeah. I mean,
go.
Yeah, we can talk into a microphone. I mean,
yeah, 167 times, and I've talked into a microphone more than 167 times.
Yeah.
Like
At
those
least
dance moves I was showing you. I've only been doing those dance moves since Monday. So I've done those maybe like a few dozen times.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But imagine though, once I've done them 167 times.
Oh yeah, you can close your eyes and just be talking about other things.
Yeah, pretty sweet.
You know, that is unusual. I don't think that it has ever come up in all 167 episodes about your dance moves. I mean, this is a first.
Yeah, because I generally don't have dance moves to demonstrate. So
You do. I usually do at this age, I do the white man underbite or overbite. Yeah, overbite. Like Billy Crystal.
Yes. Okay. Now it's making sense.
Step to the left, step to the right, move your arm like a little bit, move your feet a little bit.
Boom.
Yeah. I think that was in When Harry Met Sally. That's an old one.
It is an old one. It's in the 90s, right? 90s? Yeah, 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s. We were young folks then.
Those were the days.
Yeah, I didn't have any gray. And I had my hair.
Yeah, I see
my hair went down further.
Your solution to grays is just a little more excessive than mine, you know.
a little excessive, a little aggressive. Yeah. Plus, I really hate combing my hair. I hate
that's yes. There's a trend also for people in information security. A lot of them tend to be bald or just like shaved head. And the ones who shave their heads are like, it's because I don't have time. I work so hard. I just do not have time. I need those like 6 or 7 seconds that I get back by not having to shampoo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to shave, period. So yeah. I can't imagine taking the time to shave my entire head to make sure that I didn't miss stuff. I mean, this is a convenient haircut. I cut it down short and I don't fool around with it for another 3 to 4 weeks.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. And then I don't want to do it then because it's another hassle because then I got to clean up all the little hairs that go.
That's it. Especially I hate it like when my cleaners come and then I decide to like trim my beard and then I look down and there's like, it's like it's like someone was like doling out rose petals after in advance of the bride and groom or something.
Yeah. Well, so you got to do it. You got to start planning it. You know, if Thursday is their day to clean, Wednesday's trimming night.
Trimming day is Wednesday night, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, brother.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
So today is April 15th. There's a couple significant things about April 15th.
Although one of them is less significant today.
Less significant today. Which one's less significant today?
Well, it's not tax day.
Oh, is it not tax day today? Well,
no, it's extended until Monday for some reason.
Okay, well, today is traditional tax day, April 15th, which has been extended. We're also naming it the Liberation of Adam and Peter's Money Day.
Yes.
Because we got to pay in some more. And, I feel better about it because I feel awful that I've been holding on to this money this whole year when it should have gone to the government for people who know how to handle money better than I do. So I offer my sincere regrets.
If I didn't know better, I'd swear you were being facetious. Oh boy. Yeah, I can't wait. So yeah, I made a couple of goofs. I looked at, I did not expect that things were so different. And I made the mistake of comparing last year's previous net numbers. No, wait, last year's gross numbers to this year's net numbers.
Mhm.
And they were pretty close. So I thought I was doing fine. I thought if anything, I'd overpaid my estimates.
Mhm.
Not realizing I was looking at I was looking at profit versus gross income. And that's not what you base your taxes on. And all of a sudden I did a much better year than I had thought.
Yeah.
And my accountant was like, you told me it was about the same. I was like, yeah, it is. And then I looked, I was like, oh, wait, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. So yeah, Uncle Sam's getting a nice, I'm sorry, big fat paycheck coming his way today. So
Yeah, I've made similar mistakes, and it is difficult as a business owner because I don't have the exact same salary that I had last year, because like you said, it's based on company profits or company gross income, and then where that number can sometimes get squirrely. So
Yep.
make a best number. My CPA makes a best number. And so like last year I paid too much.
Yep.
This year I paid too little. So we made an adjustment of what we need to pay. And then, so hopefully next year it'll be close to zero. And it was really not that bad this year. I mean, considering, we're making an estimate of how well is your business going to do this year in, an up down economy.
Just imagine if we were like the board of directors of a publicly traded company having to make these sort of forward-looking statements.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it would be crazy. I mean, you look at, we talked about the new commerce edition of Microsoft. Their move was to regulate their income, to essentially establish a monthly recurring revenue that they could count on for the next year, that they could also report to their shareholders and get a handle on taxes a little bit better. I don't know that was their motivation. Well, and to make more money. They're in business to make money. I was
gonna say, let's be honest. Their bottom line motivation was to make more money. That's why they did this, right?
Yeah.
And okay, to be fair, they had not raised their prices in a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were just the first to really drop the bombshell. I've noticed others, like Dell, Lenovo, other hosted services. Everyone's like, hey, prices are going up.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing.
Yeah.
My consulting rates have gone up because everything else goes up, right? So that's the way it is. Prices are not set in stone, and we do get used to the idea that prices will stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes prices go down thanks to economies of scale and improved efficiencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also sometimes prices go up, right? Like, I don't know the last time that I ever went out to like buying a new computer, for instance. Historically, prices have come down for computers and technology. But I don't remember the last time that I went out to restaurants and observed that prices were cheaper than a previous visit. That just generally doesn't happen. Sometimes there'll be like little fluctuations, like, oh, the price of beef is way up or something, but in general, used to cost, I don't make up numbers, right? An entree used to cost $10 and now it costs like $30. And of course, if you start to upscale your restaurants a little bit, now an entree costs $50 or $100 or, so in general, I observe prices generally tend to go up. Did I tell you about my car tires last week?
We did. So we talked about your Amazon returns, and then you ended up getting them So are they on now?
They're on my back deck.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
I mean, that's very good place for them to be.
Yeah, that's great. So I was able to cancel the order because Amazon was like, yeah, we don't know where these tires are and yada, yada, yada. I called a local tire shop about a mile from my place, a little over, half a mile away from here. I said, look, I got new tires. Can you install them? They're like, yep, $25 a tire, mountain balance. I was like, great. Let's just do that. So not dealing with any of these big chains, not trying to have Amazon coordinate stuff for me anymore. But speaking of coordinating things and prices going up, I've decided that it's time to remodel my kitchen.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And I have not yet taken the plunge to actually call anyone other than my friend Jack, who used to do this kind of work, but doesn't do this kind of work anymore. And so yeah, I gotta make a trip. And most people who are in the pros in the business generally are like, yeah, Home Depot not so good. But my contractor friend did say that Home Depot does have some good stuff, but they generally just lead with all the cheapest stuff. So I'm like, kind of torn. So
yeah,
my running buddy did just go to Home Depot for his new cabinets. So I'm kind of like, maybe I'll just wait and see what he says.
yeah. I've bought cabinets from Home Depot, but that was a good 20 some odd years ago now. So what I got were okay, but I've gotten better before. It's funny. I've done enough renovations now that I've thought in my mind, like, well, solid wood doors and stuff like that are just one piece of wood with actually trim, and like, why don't we do it like that anymore? Well, we don't do it like that anymore because one piece of wood warps. One piece of wood breaks. So this engineered MDF wood and particle board stuff that we put together is heavier, but it's not going to, now if you get it wet, you're hosed. I mean, don't get it wet, but it's not going to shrink, swell, warp, do all the things that just regular wood will do. It's mostly glue. It's a plastic door, really.
Plastic door. So. And then of course there's a whole question about countertops, and I think the most dramatic change that I'll make will be, I have a peninsula, not an island, but I have a peninsula in my kitchen, and just chopping that and lowering it down from like 48 inches to standard height for like a workspace, because right now it's breakfast bar height, which I can use, but I also have a perfectly serviceable table sitting right there, so I can sit at that table, and this would give me more workspace when it comes to preparing meals and stuff, which I'm doing more often these days. I'm cooking more, and so I'm always running out of space. I'm running out of room to do the things that I'm trying to do. So that'll hopefully help.
Have you ever tried HelloFresh or something like that?
Yep.
So we're trying that right now. Well,
I did Blue Apron is what I did for a while. And it was fun. It was nice. And I always saved all the recipes because I'm like, I can do this again myself at some point. Never did.
Yeah. You can save the recipes. It's the convenience of having it all come together, and you didn't have to put it all together. And because it's only giving you enough spices or whatever for this recipe, you don't have all these extra spices. So, I can see the convenience of it. What's inconvenient right now is my wife has never made these recipes, so she's got to learn them for the first time, which is always slower than once you've done something before.
I seem to remember liking the the Blue Apron stuff. I get a lot of recipes these days out of the New York Times, because I do pay for the New York Times, mostly for the spelling bee and the crossword now, but it includes recipes and news articles. So I do that, but I love the ingredients. I detest the way whoever writes the recipes, puts the steps down, because it'll be like step 1. And step 1 is like 15 steps in one paragraph. So it's like step 1, pour the eggs into the bowl, add the cumin, salt, and pepper, stir until it, beat until it is fluffy, add the blah, 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 do this. While you're waiting for this, turn on the oven and preheat it to 450 degrees. That's step 1.
Yeah. There's only 3 steps.
And so I always end up missing something. So anything that's more complicated than, like 5 steps, really 5 steps, I always will copy and paste it into a text document and break it down into the actual number of steps. And then things go so smoothly.
Yeah.
But it's like Microsoft documentation will frequently say stuff like, select horizontal line from the insert menu.
Nah. Okay.
No. Click insert, click horizontal line.
Yeah.
Don't, it's just like, what kind of idiot writes directions like that? Like, it's like, put away the bread after you've made the sandwich. So anyway. Okay, enough ragging on Microsoft for one day.
Yeah. Well, and I think I mentioned today is also Good Friday, which is not the 15th. It's just how Easter fell.
Yes, but Easter is coincidentally still on a Sunday this year and this week. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Actually, technically next week. So.
I hope Thanksgiving's on Thursday too this year, because that's so convenient.
It does work out better that way. So okay.
Good Friday landed on a Friday. Amazing.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, I've recently been playing with DKIM, DKIM, domain keys identification manglement or something.
Management?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
I actually don't even know what the acronym stands for. I just know what it's supposed to do.
It's domain keys identify. I always forget the identified mail.
There you go.
Yes. So the holy trinity of like not having your email spoofed are SPF, which is sender policy framework, where you essentially say, hey, these are servers that could send email for my domain. And that used to be great. All right. But apparently it's not as good. And then DKIM came along and said, well, we will now digitally sign emails coming from these servers that you claim to have. And on top of that, you list these in DNS records. So if you are a receiving mail server, you can check the authenticity and say, yes, not only is this a valid server of Adam's, but Adam signed it with this certificate. And yes, I can tell that really is him sending it. And that way, if I get email that's coming from evilbadguy.com spoofing you, I can just say, doesn't look legit, reject, right?
Yeah, I miss the days when I used to, so what Peter's talking about, I used to be able, from a command prompt, go to Peter's mail server, log in, not necessarily log in, but connect to it. And from a terminal session, I could send Peter an email from himself, from his mail server, and there was no authentication whether it was real or not.
Yep. And that's something that was known as a phenomenon known as an open relay.
Yeah.
You got mail for me? Sure. Great. You're pretending to be mail from me? Sure. We'll still take it. Great. Bring it on in. That's awesome.
Send it.
So what got me down this road was a client of ours was running this. They've got this app and they're routinely getting blacklisted, right? So their mail server is getting blacklisted. And because we offer some shared hosting, that would mean other clients would also get blacklisted. Now, the funny part is no one ever noticed except the client themselves, right? So none of the shared hosting people ever complained about their mails not going through, anything like that. But this one did. And he looked at it and he said, oh, you really got to set up DMARC, which is another extension onto DKIM, which is domain messaging authentication and reporting and conformance.
Conformance.
Yes.
Nice. That's a good word.
And I was like, okay, so what happened with all that stuff? So I started diving into it, looking around. I was like, yeah, we really do. It is time to clean up and revisit all of our, email offerings and really clean this up. And if you use something like a hosted exchange service like Google, M365, or other hosted exchange, most places have like a little click, 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 and they generate the keys and it's good. But you generally, if you do it all in one place, they may do everything for you. Otherwise, you have to still update your DNS records. So like if you have your email and your DNS hosted with Amazon AWS, and you have your DNS and your email hosted on Microsoft, then it's just like click, 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 and we're done.
Yeah.
And it's great. But if you have anything separately, then it's a separate step. And a best practice for DKIM is that you're supposed to rotate your keys like every 6 months, because yeah. So you win. Yeah. And if you're doing this as a manual thing, like on a Linux server where you're typing it all up, and it's like, it can be automated. Obviously it can be automated, but it's not. So a couple of things that I came out, I realized that there were only 3 domains for which this was a problem for ours, because my hosting operation, it's small, it's a few little one-offs here, and it's just not worth the hassle anymore. So I decided what I was going to tell is these few remaining customers is we're not going to support this anymore. If you want our El Cheapo mail service, that's going away, but we can move you to G Suite or move you to hosted, Microsoft 365,
which is not all that expensive anyway.
It's not. But if your entire, internet hosting budget is $20 a month, then it's that expensive, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's okay, because if their entire budget is $20 a month, that means that at most I'm losing $20 a month. So
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about that one. So then I started looking at it into the problem, and I was going up based on what the client had told us, because he said, well, you've really got to get your DMARC all fixed up and blah blah blah. And so I looked into it, and I realized that I started looking at some of the rejection emails that we were getting, mostly from Google. And Google says, we're rejecting these emails because they are likely spam based on the contents. And I looked, and they were spam. They weren't likely spam. These were just spam.
Yeah.
And I tracked it down to a feature contact form for the client that was complaining. And I said, so the problem is that they have this interface where you can fill out a web form, and it interfaces with their application that they provide on the back end. And it's something we wrote like 20 years ago, more than 20 years. It was like 1999. But it has a feature where you can arbitrarily CC anybody. You can carbon copy anyone from the form. Well, spammers just go in, put in garbage in the field to interface with their application, which their application rejects. But our web server was happily taking the emails and copying any arbitrary recipient. So essentially, that web form made our server into an open relay. And
I got a script for you.
and I just said, I looked at it and I was like, I can't believe we're still allowing this. Like 22 years ago, sure, fine. I was like, all right, this has to stop. And he's like, well, is there any way we could support it? I said, yes, but it means we have to set up a mailing list. And anyone who would receive one of these CCs needs to opt in so that they can register their email address with us so that you can do this. And I can tell right off the bat, you're not going to want to pay for us for the development time to set this up. No. I know you guys, I know your budget. You're not going to, because they're telecom and they're super cheap. So they're not going to want to do that. I said, and the apps that are using this is a few of their larger customers, they're hospitals. And I said, well, what they should do is they should internally host the contact form, interface with you by sending their message to your application, and then using their own internal email server to send the email. And then this problem just goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I did revisit and found out that DKIM for a number of my hosted clients was either not ever set up or not set up correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I better fix that. So I started looking at it. And one thing that I looked at to make it as a workaround, as opposed to me having to do all of my rolling my own DKIM, because I still have one Linux mail server out there running postfix, which is just a forwarder. A few clients were too cheap. They didn't, want to pay for their own email. They're like, I want to keep my Gmail, but I don't want to pay anybody for it. And I don't want to pay Google, right, to host my domain. I just want to be able, you email joe@example.com and it forwards to joeexample@gmail.com. And so I have had this little Linux, Linode box standing up for years that all it does is it just takes an email and it forwards it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these people receive spam. They sign up for whatever and they start getting spammed. My server takes said spam and hands it over to Gmail or hands it over to Earthlink or Hotmail. And Gmail, Earthlink, and Hotmail look and say, you're sending me spam. I'm going to blacklist you.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right. And then the client complains to me that they're not getting their emails. So I said, all right, I think this is going to go away. But in the meantime, I'm going to give them some time. I'll give them to the end of the year. In the meantime, wait, there's some options though, because there are email forwarding services.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a look at one called forwardemail.net.
Okay.
Their professional service starts out at only $3 a month for unlimited domains. So I could easily handle my own and a few other domains and a handful of clients. And all they do is they just take your email and just, you set it up with DNS as their MX records. And then in their portal, you set up all of your aliases. So I set up with my own with Nikolaidis.com as a test. I was like, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. So I rang it up, put it in, don't get any messages.
I was going to say, what about the spam issue?
That would be their problem. Right. And presumably I'm paying someone else whose full-time product service offering is to handle spam. So
Okay.
they do put spam filters in front of it.
Okay,
So, but if anyone's getting blacklisted, they're going to get blacklisted. They can deal with the headache of getting de-blacklisted, which is something I have to face all the time with this other client. I was like, so that problem away, I will happily pay you $3 a month to make this problem go away.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent my test email.
It didn't go.
Nothing. I waited a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I'm watching the old mail server to make sure, no, the email is not hitting my old mail server. An hour goes by. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. I can't wait any longer. I roll the mail exchanger records back to my server. And then sometime later that night, the retries kicked in and my tests came through. Okay, so so some email was delayed, but I never got it. So I submit a support request to them, or I tried, and it says, you have exceeded the maximum number of support requests. Well, that's because earlier in the day, I had submitted a support request asking, is it possible to bulk import all of my email aliases so I don't have to type them all in one at a time? Let me just double check. Okay, it has been well over 24 hours at this point, and they still have not answered that. And my back of the napkin math would seem to indicate that you are only allowed to have one open support request at a time. Well, they have not responded to the first support request, so I can't open one where I have a real clear and present need.
Uh-huh.
then at 6 a.m. this morning, they sent me a bunch of things saying like, hey, welcome aboard, one for each domain that I had added. And they said, if you have any questions, you can just reply to this email, which I did. And this was 5 hours ago. I replied with the same exact thing. No response. So I'm getting the feeling like this is not a service that I want to be wasting any more time or money on.
Yeah.
So there are some competitors, and another option like is if you have your domain, some domain registrars also offer web and email hosting. And like I have one domain for a friend at namecheap.com. And it's just, I have an email forwarder. So anything at his domain goes to his Comcast email address. I could do the same thing with these, El Cheapo customers, but then I lose the ability to host their website through Cloudflare, which is protecting their website, which since I'm on a shared web hosting that I'm offering for other clients, I really want to keep that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, this is all becoming a real hassle. So I have an email drafted, just let them know, hey, like we can set up a quick call. I'll explain it, but end of the year, we're doing away with our email relaying service. That's just done. We're just done with that. For my larger clients who are actually paying, enough, I will go in and rotate those DKIM keys every 6 months. We will troubleshoot things and, but for this, it's just like, sorry, we're not in the business of being El Cheapo anymore. So that's my latest adventures with DKIM. About you?
Well, so it's funny. Well, before I go on that, but I used to do the email server that I used was a Windows email server by True North Software, Internet Anywhere. Did you ever fool with that one?
I believe that I fooled with it.
We
didn't actually run it.
Yeah, it did pop and it did IMAP.
Yes,
and
I had a client who ran that. So yes, I ran into it once and we migrated them off of it.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool that was early in my system administration years.
Yes.
And so it was very exciting for me to be able to run an email server, and I could host multiple domains. So I could use different domain names to do it. It had some spam filtering built in. Like its spam filtering was blasts, detecting a number of email, a volume of emails and then block and stop and things like that. So that was fun. To me, I really enjoyed just watching emails come into the queue. They sit there and build, and then a client grabs them and pulls them out of the queue. It was like, this is cool IT stuff right here.
Oh yeah, no, it's fun for sure. Watching that, like, oh, look, there's a mail in the inbox. Oh, it just got taken out. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, that's fun, but I don't have time for that anymore.
No, nobody has time for pop anymore. But that was really cool though, when it, the pop email was sitting there on the server, and then you watch, okay, Peter connected. Look, he just took all of his email.
Yep. He's downloading it.
Yes. Save a copy on the server for 30 days, just in case.
Just in case. And that was always a problem. Oh my goodness, because inevitably I would have a client who was set up like that, and then something would go wrong with the client or the server, and they would get all their emails again.
Yeah.
And they would be irate that they were, and then, so we fixed that with IMAP. Right. IMAP is great. IMAP is the way things are just supposed to work. Which, and then of course, Microsoft had to come along and extend that with MAPI. And, so you flip it on its head. So you're not doing IMAP anymore. You're doing MAPI, and, you get a lot more back and forth and calendaring support and other stuff like that. I forget, are you primarily M365 or are you G Suite for Sublime?
Well, my company still runs on G Suite, but for the most part, we recommend Office 365, and that's what we deploy.
I'm the same way, right? And I'll tell you why. The reason that we're still on G Suite is just legacy. We've been on it since they initiated it back in the day. We've been on the free program, which is going away in a month or two.
Yeah.
And I just like, going through a migration right now. I'm just going to pay the thing and we're going to probably stay on G Suite for now. All right.
Yeah. Same.
So, yeah.
I mean,
But,
I had the free for a while, but then I've paid for enterprise upgrades for like retention and things that I wanted. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pay for it. And it's really not that expensive.
yep.
But the biggest thing is, if it had the Office suite is included as
Yep.
part of Google, then I would do it. And you know how difficult it is to try to get to somebody to engage with Google Docs and Google Sheets and say, you can do all these things there. No, you can't. I mean, and I agree there. I have to have Word and Excel installed on my computer for handling some things,
Yep.
for just data processing.
Yep.
I download spreadsheets, I process them, I upload them, I do things with them that way. I
Yep.
could technically do it in Sheets, but it'd be so much more difficult.
Yeah, and the funny thing is too, is like, yeah, you can technically that you can do just about everything for in Microsoft Office. You can do just about everything in Google, G Suite also, but not everything, just about everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hurts a lot more to do
Yeah.
it. Where Google really kicks Microsoft right in the teeth, though, is just like the online collaboration stuff and like the native web interface. Since Google was web native from the get-go,
Mm-hmm.
the web experience in Google is still, I find, superior. And always like trying to open and close documents from SharePoint online natively, not opening a mapped folder through the OneDrive client to SharePoint and double clicking an Excel document there, but going into a modern version of Excel and saying file open, browse to places, go to SharePoint. That almost always either fails to open or fails to save the file. And I end up having to browse to my local file system to find the SharePoint mounted synchronized drive and drop the files that I want there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just don't have that. And every now and then, like heaven forbid, you get logged out of, or you need to re-authenticate to your Office
Account. Yeah.
Account, and like everything breaks. And I've got to sign out of everything and manually sign back into like Outlook and Word and my OneDrive client and my iPhone. And that's just a hassle that really doesn't need to exist.
Yeah. Google does that so much better. All of the apps seamlessly work with each other.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel like you've left one app and gone to another.
Yep.
And I know that you're going to different servers and they're different platforms, just like Microsoft is doing. But if you're in SharePoint and you want to drop something in Teams, it's practically a whole nother application that data has ported between the two of them.
Yep. Yeah, totally is. And that's the thing, where Google being cloud native, even like Google Docs was originally Writely, and it was just another service that they acquired and pulled in, and it works because it's not something that was built for a desktop in MS-DOS and then ported to Windows 3.1 and then ported up to Windows 95 and Windows NT and eventually up to the web. It's something. So there you go. That was a little bit of history and Office documentation for you. So.
Yeah, I do. Like, the other thing is, hey, Peter and I worked on a document. How could I find that? Okay, I'll go to Drive, and it doesn't matter where that document is. If I search for it and if I use the search terms of the title or the content, it'll find it no matter where it is.
Yep. Good luck with that in Office.
Yeah.
OneDrive.
And if I go into my Gmail, I want to search for something that you and I talked about in Hangouts. I just search for it. It'll come up.
Because Google, get this, Google knows search.
They do know search.
Huh. Funny how that works.
So back to your DKIM question.
Yeah.
So we've got a client that right now, it's got this weird phenomenon that we can't figure out. And so we're reviewing all the records, and he's asking me, my system admin's asking me, well, we need DKIM set up, and I've done that and I fixed that. And do we need DMARC? And I'm like, you need to ask one of the other guys who knows this a little bit better than me, because this does not interest me. So I'm not real engaged in it. I do know I don't want to demark email every single day to review, because I'm not going to review it. I'm not an AI. I'm not going to review it. So don't even send it. Don't generate it. Don't put it in. I don't want it.
I can just send it to your email, right?
Yeah. It sends it to your email.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. But then, so the DKIM, we're making sure that the records were good there, but our phenomenon, which we still haven't figured out what's happening, it has to do with our filtering system. It has to. You are out of the office. You get an Amazon email saying, Peter, your device or your whatever has shipped. You reply automatically, because you didn't set up your auto reply to only reply to your own contacts. You said reply to all. You replied automatically back to the Amazon notification, which is not a valid email, because they don't want spam back. They don't want you to tell them auto reply for the millions of emails they send every minute.
No reply at blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to reply to that.
Yeah. So Peter's email auto replies because he's out of the office. He replies back to Amazon. Amazon says drop. Well, we are getting a ticket generated from that drop, because that email is then coming to our help desk email. We have no idea how it's getting to the help desk email. How does it even know the help desk email exists? Because their domain and our domain have never touched. I mean, it's not like, well, we used to be on the same server. No, they're on Office 365. They've always been on Office 365 before they were ever a client. They're not associated in any way in ownership. We don't own their domain. But when this occurs, we get a help desk ticket and we don't know how.
Email hosting is such a pain. And that's it. That's where it's a pain.
Mm-hmm.
It is a pain. And this is why I just don't host my own email anymore. I got to get rid of this altogether. And as someone who used to manage, like Linux based POP and IMAP and send mail, not even postfix, send mail server and Exchange on-prem and stuff. I just don't want that again. No more.
I hated those phone calls of, Peter, I didn't get an email from so-and-so. They sent it.
Yep.
And I didn't get it.
I'm sure they did.
So you need to find out why I'm not getting that email. And
then finding out and trying to explain to people like, because we blocked them because they've been compromised and they're sending spam and viruses by email. Yeah, but I know the guy.
Yeah. And we know we want that email. And I just talked to their IT guy and he says they've got it fixed.
Then eventually the filtering service that we are using will unblock them.
Can't you do that now, Peter?
No. Go away.
Go away.
Oh, boy.
You can tell I've had this conversation before.
Funny how that is, isn't it?
All right. So you showed me a dance. Why in the world did you do that dance to begin with?
So the other day, the lady and I were out for a walk, and she mentioned that she had class that night, and my yoga class for Monday night had gotten canceled, the one I was going to attend. And she was running a little bit late, and she's a dancer. That's like her thing. Like when I'm running, she's dancing. That's her thing. Pretty freaking impressive too. Seeing watching her do Latin dance and stuff, I'm like, I can't even touch that. I'm not even going to try.
You are learning to dance, aren't you?
Well, she recently started this popping class, which I guess it's an outgrowth of hip hop, tangentially related to like breakdancing and things like that. And so she had mentioned like, she'd come to popping class, and I didn't say yes or no, but we're at her place, and her Tesla, she's got the fancy run flat tires.
Yeah.
and they're flat, but they're not running. So I said, well, I can just drive you. And so what are you gonna? I says, well, you said that, come to class. She's like, really? So sure. So I went to my first dance class in like 2 years or so. Because I had taken tango lessons a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So that was like 3 years ago. Wow. So I did this popping class, and it was pretty straightforward. It's fun. Like, I'm just trying to get the basics of the steps and turning my body in the right direction. It was kind of fun. It was fairly straightforward. And I was like, I can do this. It's kind of fun. So I did that on Monday night, and it looks like I'll probably go back this next Monday, and
Nice.
so I guess, so if I do it for like 3 weeks in a row, I guess that becomes a habit. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, anyway.
Well, my wife and I are going to go do dance lessons again once Lexi graduates, my youngest daughter.
Cool.
So we went to a dance competition recently. It's been over a month ago, but we went recently. Have you ever been to a dance competition, like Dancing with the Stars competition?
I have not been to a dance competition. Now, I'm sure that she could tell me all about that kind of stuff, because she's got trophies and awards and stuff.
What it is sensory overload, at least the one that I went to.
Okay.
It was way too stimulating. There was, the music was on all the time, whatever they were doing. And then they were always trying to keep everybody hyped up. And that goes on. That's like, oh, that's cool for the first hour. Then the second hour, then I'm like, I'm getting tired. I just don't like being this excited and upbeat for an 8-hour day. So, it was exhausting. I'm like, now, next time I know I'm going to have to go and like take breaks, because it's just very stimulating. You got these dancers out here doing very interesting, exciting moves and dances. And and you are engaged with them because it is really good. But it's just too much stimuli. Yeah. It's exhausting.
Yep.
And the thing was, these dancers, they danced all day, and then they were like, and my daughter couldn't go because my daughter at the time was 17. Either way, she's not 21. They were all going to the bar afterwards. They're like, well, we're going to Cotton Eye Joe's so we can dance more tonight. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yes. So yeah, she does that, and I don't. But I liken that to, like, my purple belt, my brown belt, my black belt tests, where, we're going at it full force for 4 to 6 hours. And then, like, now let's go drinking. or for me, running a marathon, let's go and, let's just go do that. And then, hang on. So those are my endurance activities. But I'm, watching people dance, that's work.
Yeah. Because we're clapping and cheering for them and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, this was really intense. It was fun. I wouldn't want to do it all the time. Like I said, I know how to compensate more. Like, okay, I'm going to use the restroom. Where'd Adam go? He took a 15-minute break. Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, cool.
All right. Well, what else we got? What's next on our list?
So I had a call today with our friend Tim Richter, and he says hello.
Tim.
And he was moving away from Threat Locker. Are you familiar with Threat Locker?
I am not familiar with Threat Locker. What is Threat Locker?
So I will explain Threat Locker, but before I do that, I'm going to back up to Zero Trust Security, which you're very used to. Zero Trust Security.
So Zero Trust Security can mean different things to different people, but essentially the way I like I view it as an extension of least privilege, and always verifying the who and the where and the when, and not trusting that just because you logged in to, you gave me a password yesterday, that you're still the same person. So revalidating, and also factoring in like places like where you're coming from, and just lots of stuff like that. But zero trust can mean a lot of things. But yes, talk to me. What what does Threat Locker do exactly?
So Threat Locker uses the zero trust security model, but they're using it on a PC, and the applications and the operating system it builds zero trust around that. So
Yep.
what it does is it more or less takes a snapshot of how the computer exists today, the programs that it's running today,
Yep.
and then says if anything else tries to happen to this computer, to the applications and programs, then I'm not going to allow it.
Yep.
As you can see, that, I mean, that is going to be a very large, difficult task. And it's also going to be a great big pain in the rear, because it also has to keep up with updates, because Adobe Reader has updates. Adobe Reader is a valid program. It's now got updates. You've got to trust and allow those updates to occur without having to go into every single computer and update Adobe Reader.
Mhm.
Well, that's the administrative nightmare of it. Tim's trying to deal with big clients, like a large volume of clients who have a large grouping of PCs and softwares, and things need to be updated. And so every time the updates are supposed to just go. A valid software is supposed to just go. So that Adobe Reader update should have occurred. Threat Locker is supposed to know that that update is from Adobe. It's assigned and it allows it to install. But it doesn't always work exactly the way that it does. Or if you need, as a user, to add an add-on, well, that wasn't a trusted application, so it's got to be added. And it's a big administrative headache from maintaining that in a dynamic environment. Now, I would say that it does have its place. There would be some places where this would be perfect. If you're talking about a point of sale system that doesn't change from day to day, but is actually a PC, this would be great for that. Those users on the counter, they wouldn't be able to change anything or go out to websites and download something on that point of sale system. So that would be really good. Bank terminals. We work with credit unions. Having that on a bank terminal where you can't possibly have any other software that could possibly steal your information from scraping their core system. I mean, that'd be a good application of Threat Locker.
Yes, I'm with you.
Now, if you were a marketing executive and was doing software image development, that would be an awful program for you.
Yes, because you're changing everything all the time.
Yeah, you're changing fonts, you're changing, resolution stuff. You're always going to be messing around with things that you've got to be able to change dynamically to do your job. So it's lousy. So the Threat Locker would love to be able to say, and they do say, there's no need for antivirus with us, because antivirus, you've got heuristic scans, you've got all definitions that you've got to maintain. Yeah. And they're right. They are right.
If you're full on whitelisting, only trusted stuff can run.
Yeah.
Great.
Don't need antivirus.
Don't need it.
But, it's like utopian societies. I mean, communism's perfect if everybody shares and there are no greedy people.
Yeah. It's great. It works perfect.
Works perfect.
Sounds good.
Unfortunately, there are greedy people in the world, and it doesn't work because we are people. So I thought that was interesting, and I got to share with you a little bit of something you didn't know in a security wise session, and that doesn't happen very often.
Well, I'm not familiar with that vendor, but I am familiar with the idea of whitelisting for sure. So yes.
Yeah. There's very few security vendors that I know about that you don't already know. Oh yeah, we evaluated that 3 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, that's crap. Yeah, you don't want to touch that one. That's garbage. Oh, brother. Well, cool. All right. What else we got?
Let's see. We did popping. We've got other things that are probably run long now. You still running your ultra running shoes?
Yeah, my ultras, my ultras. Yes. Ultras. Yes. Although yesterday I did go and for the first time in months, I pulled out my Merrell trail gloves, which are like my pretty minimalist trail running shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And did about I did like 6 miles in the trails. This weekend it'll be 8.5 miles with about, I think, 700 feet of elevation or so.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a minor tapering week where I dip back down, and then next week it's back up to like 10 or 12 miles. I forget. But yeah, the Ultra Lone Peak gloves are working out really, not gloves, trail shoes are working pretty well for me. I like them. Again, with the caveat that I need to rip the insoles out of them. Got to tear those so the built. Did we not talk about these yet? I can't remember who I've talked to about. So I bought the Ultra Lone Peak version 5s about a month and a half ago, and I went out on a day which was very snowy, and I loved them. Now, when things are very snowy, like a lot of snow on the ground, I don't do the super duper technical trails.
Mm-hmm.
So things that, where it's jagged rocks and boulders, where, even on a good day, you're at a risk of like twisting an ankle or something like that if you fall down between them. I don't touch those when they're covered with 6 inches of snow. Mm-hmm. Because then you can't even see the pit traps that are just waiting for you, right? Yeah. So I went on relatively light, easy trails, loved them, called the store before I was even home from my run, said, hold another pair for me. Great. So I got them. The next time I took them out, it was not a snowy day. It was sunny, and all of those exposed jagged rocks were out. And so I was doing a different, more technical trail, and it felt like I was going to roll my ankle like almost every step of the way. Totally different feel, unstable, wobbly. I felt like I was up on stilts and, going off in each direction. It's like, what the heck happened? And I thought about it, and I was like, wow, okay. Well, maybe it was just a bad day. Let me try another one. And I did it at the same time, same, similar type trail, same experience. I was like, this is not fun. I don't like this. I'm not having fun with, this is a bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them was in pretty good shape. The one that I worn that one time out on the snowy day, I'm like, they'll take these back. I could do that. But the other ones were, lighter in color. They're all scuffed up and scraped. And I was like, they're not going to take these back. So what can I do? Like maybe I'll just wear them in the wintertime, in which case I have like 5-year supply of shoes here for those days. And then I was like, what if I can pull the insoles out? And sure enough, it's got removable insoles. So I just yanked them out, went for a quick little half-mile technical trail run to test them out. They're great.
Perfect.
Love them. And so I ripped the insoles out of the other ones, and these are now my go-to, like hardcore trail running shoes. And they've got some serious treads on these things. They're like claws. So so I do like the Ultra Lone Peak Trail version 5 trail shoes. I did not try version 6 because I got a closeout deal on version 5s, but they're fine. They're not minimalist, which is my normal thing, but they're pretty slick. So I'm liking those.
Cool.
Yep. There you go.
All right. Well, this week I didn't do CrossFit. I did yoga every morning. And primarily for, I wanted to give myself a rest. I've been working at the farm every weekend, physically working at the farm. So I was doing 5 days, between 3 and 5 days of CrossFit during the week, and doing all weekend, and then allowing myself to go sleep in on Monday, but then doing it all over again. And that's been going on for 3 weeks, and bookending it with working at the farm. And I was like, I need a rest, and my flexibility has gone down. Can barely touch my toes again, even though, when I go CrossFit, I always stretch before and I stretch after, but it's not the same as doing a dedicated yoga session. So this week I focused on that, and my flexibility has gotten slightly better. The worst thing I can do is, caterpillar pose. That one's, I am so stiff. They're like, why don't you lean forward? I'm like, I am leaning forward. I need a block. And I really need like a half a block, because I just need to, because if I get too much on my block, I'm so stiff that it actually hurts my knees a little bit, the stretch.
You can always bend your knees a little bit too.
Yeah, and bend my knees a little bit, and that'll help.
And you can also do that standing up too, just ragdoll pose.
Yeah, and so and I have found that I can't do that cold. Like my back is so stiff. If I just bend over, it just hurts. So I've got to work up to that. And it's funny, the guy that I usually do, Travis Elliott, he's got videos and I like his stuff. This particular set I was doing this week starts with that as the first move.
Okay.
And I have to just do that one later because I'm too stiff and it hurts too much.
So I have his book, but I've never like gone through any of his sequences or anything.
He's an interesting dude. I mean, he's definitely a granola yogi. But he does say some interesting things, like when he has good banter. Okay. While you're doing the yoga, he'll say, and so says that the 3 tenets of this are, XYZ, and he talks through them, and they're like, well, yeah, I wish I had more patience and compassion and simplicity. I would like that.
It sounds kind of vaguely familiar. It sounds vaguely like some stuff I might talk about. Talk about compassion, about like, for yourself when you're in one of these poses.
Yeah.
So don't try to kill yourself in this pose. That defeats the purpose.
Yeah. So like I say, he's got pretty good, I don't know what you want to call that. Banter. I mean, banter is not the right term, but yeah.
Audio content.
Yeah. But I like his yoga sessions.
Cool. All right. Well, maybe I'll revisit one of his, maybe I'll check his stuff out. I always like extra fodder for banter and stuff like that. So
I think he would be right up your alley though. I mean, as far as like in your section of the woods.
Yep. Well, he is a Kripalu instructor, and they're right out in Western Mass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'll put that on my list of things to do.
Oh, now I remember. I knew there was one more thing I wanted to chat with you. I wanted to remind you about a book called "He Who Fights with Monsters." It's a course of a Dungeons and Dragons base, like, a guy's in his regular world, gets sucked into a magic world, know. And the character he's essentially a good guy and a geeky guy with his own personal quirks and issues. And the very first episode, he's talking about his, scene 1, he gets sucked into the other world and he's like, where are my Darth Vader pajamas? So to me, I feel like that's foreshadowing from the very beginning of how this guy is going to go from a good guy to a Darth Vader character. Because he's wearing Darth Vader pajamas to bed.
And he's obviously evil.
He's not evil, but in Darth Vader's eyes, he wasn't evil either.
Right.
When he converted, he was, taking vengeance for his mother's death and
killing the children in the Jedi Academy was perfectly justifiable.
Justifiable, yeah.
Yep. Great. Sure.
Got to get rid of those Jedis.
Yep. Evil Jedi.
Evil Jedis. But I think the only thing that I think that would be difficult for you is you don't seem to like long audiobooks or long reads. And this is definitely a verbose read.
If it's an audio book that's going to go on, as long as it's got on, like a good continuity that I can stick through, then I'm okay with it.
Give it a try. Give it a try, the first one on audio, because he's Australian and the narrator is Australian. So there's lots of good, like, I love listening to other dialects that are completely different. And, just some of the words that they say, I'm like, wait a minute, what? What did he say? I gotta hear that. But
you could tell right off the bat that this Kevin was in trouble.
Yeah.
What? His name's Kevin? I didn't know that.
But you'll like, the narrator is consistent through all the first 4 books. I just downloaded the 5th book. And the narrator does a really great job with him.
Okay.
And he does female voices, and you don't notice it. I mean, you just kind of get used to this character. Some people do it really well. Sometimes I don't like to hear a woman do a man's voice, because I don't think they do it real well, or they're trying too hard.
Yes. Yes. So one where they do that is I listen to and I subscribe to the and pay. I'm a patron for the Age of Victoria podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually use that as fodder for when I run Rippers games in Savage Worlds, which is set in like Victorian England, where the villain, I've talked about it on the show, the villains are like werewolves and vampires and Frankenstein and all the classic Victorian era villains and stories there. And Sherlock Holmes is a hero, and so I listen to the Age of Victoria, and he will frequently read passages from Victoria's diary. And when he does it, he adopts a falsetto voice like this when he is reading it, and I don't mind it so much. I think I've kind of gotten used to it, but often he gets feedback from listeners who just say, like, I don't know why he's doing that. This is so stupid. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I can't listen to it.
Yeah, so, that's the thing. It's got to be subtle enough that you don't notice that what just happened here.
Exactly.
I didn't. You're like, oh well, Pharaoh's now talking. Oh.
Yep. And what I prefer is like to have a have multiple voice actors, right? So in one, for instance, which is kind of funny. So one of my favorite superhero books of all time is Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman. Great book, hugely entertaining. It's awesome. The audio version, and the thing is, the book is told from 2 points of view, one from the villain who's male and one from the heroine who's female. And it's funny because most of it's like sort of like a diary, or you're getting the villain's perspective, and he's like, he starts off reminiscing or ruminating about how he's going to bust out of prison this time. And he's going on and on and on, and then chapter 2 kicks in, and Fatal, the heroine, starts taking over. And in the book, they have a male narrator for him and a female narrator for her. But there are times when they encounter each other where they do the other one's voice. Yeah. So like all of a sudden the woman will say, oh, and then he said this, or she does a male voice, whereas the other way around. So that's a little bit like, okay, it's a little funny, but I guess my favorite would be like an audio production where you actually have different voices. Doesn't have to be one actor per one character, but it's nice if you can have, more than one voice doing the entire thing for a work of fiction. So.
See, I'm not a fan of that, but that's why they make chocolate.
There you go.
There's nothing wrong with it. I don't prefer it. And I really don't like sound effects in my audiobooks.
That I can do without. And I thought one of the craziest ones to hear sound effects for was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babbitt.
Yeah, like, why did you put that in there?
All of a sudden they just had, like, we were in Ramadi, and then you hear boom, 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 and I was like, I thought there's a book on business leadership. What is this now? A Tom Clancy novel?
Well, so what I was in I forget which one, but it has the young guy from Breaking Bad. He's not young anymore. Jesse. Yeah, the actor who played Jesse. It was an audio book that he did, and I didn't like it. but there were sound effects, and I was going along, and then like there's something behind me, and I've got earbuds in both, and I'm concerned something's really behind me, because the sound goes, it sounds like something has happened right behind. I'm like, hey, I don't need this. I don't, I don't need these kind of sound effects that are making me jump while I'm on my tractor or whatever. I thought something broke. I need you to read the words.
Yep. Just give me the words and we're good. So speaking of being good, I think we're about at time.
Oh yeah, we've gone over. Everybody gets a bonus. Today is Friday bonus content.
Well, it's like getting a tax refund and you didn't even have to pay taxes. All right. Well, I will take us out then. So listener, if you want to get in touch with us, you can find Adam at sublimecomp.com, and he's also at sublimecomp on Twitter, which, by the way, we did not mention is on the has been offered to be purchased for an all cash deal by the world's richest man, Elon Musk.
I know, I saw that.
Oh my God. Anyway, you can find Adam on Twitter at Sublime Comp. You can find me on Twitter at Nikolaidis. You can also find me at nikolaidis.com or paradigmcc.com or yogawithpeter.com. But if you just start at pn72.com, you'll find links to all those other things. Nice. You can find the podcast at blurringthelinespodcast.com. There's a contact form there, and we will verify your email via DKIM and DMARC and make sure that it's not spam and sending us an open relay and all that other crap. But yeah, love to hear from you. We like to hear topics. We like feedback. We'll even take criticism. I mean, we may not act on it, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, if you want to send us that, give us some contact. And until next time, we will see you here on the interwebs. And with that, Adam, I think it's time to push the big red button.